Hey, it's Chris. What are we doing? Retail, and why you should not buy any of the biggest names, the biggest flash in the pans, the biggest hotness, the biggest hype of the month. Big names. A couple crowdfundings coming to retail, finally showing up on that aspect of things. A couple other just massive IPs. But as always, no FOMO, and especially at retail, you have to remember, it'll still be there 6 months from now. So you don't need to buy it now. You still can, nothing wrong with that, no judgment, but again, just hesitation. Yellow light Chris, as they call me. I made that up, let's go. I would be amiss if I didn't include both these games as well. And these are little asterisks because, you know what, they're not technically available, but you can pre-order, you can go after it. Do you want to spend over $200 on each one of these games that went to crowdfunding, but now are getting all the clicks, hype, hotness, and excitement because other people are having fun and the other people are having the grass is greener syndrome like you are right now? And the first one up is from Chip Theory. The Elder Scrolls Betrayal its second era base game, $225 right now on their website, with another $50 for the expansion that you're never going to play. And yeah, if you want to play a game and maximize it out as the best Chip Theory game ever, this is going to be that. If you don't like any of their other games, if you don't like any of their other games, this one is not going to change your mind whatsoever. It is Chip Theory on steroids. And I say that in a good way because I think it's probably better. It'd be even more approachable for someone like myself who, wasn't as big a fan of Too Many Bones, who didn't really, like some of the other Hoplomachus, but it takes those systems and it refines it and it gives you the Elder Scrolls version of things. And you can character customize and you can open world and you can go down to the battles. And so it has those elements that I think are going to be tremendous. I think they're fantastic. But the question is, can you afford to have a $250 paperweight if it's not for you? And again, I'll make the argument that Chip Theory is always better on crowdfunding, so you shouldn't even be looking at it retail. I'll also say that Chip Theory games don't, come a ton on the secondary market, which is actually one of the best testaments you can say to any game in that regard, is that you just can't necessarily count on getting a copy secondhand in that way. And so that's really freaking good. But this is also a game, just like the next one we'll talk about, that I feel like is heavily, I'm looking over my shoulder and seeing someone else tell me that this is the most amazing game since sliced bread. This is the 2025 game of the year. The next one, this is the 2025 game of the year. Both of these, 100 hours. Do you have the ability, the wherewithal, the group, or even the table space to have something that long? Do you even have the attention span? I barely have the attention span for these videos, but I'm actually pretty good with games, actually, all things considered. I'm actually the rule teacher and the explainer and the loser most of the time. Heavy solo, just like the other Chip Theory games. It is cooperative lifestyle, just like the other Chip Theory games. It is still a tabletop role-playing game. The big question I'd say is, if you're one of those people looking at it right now and you love Too Many Bones, if you have a lot of Too Many Bones, do you fear with a game like this that it could replace Too Many Bones? I mean, I feel like that's sometimes what we see with other games, is I don't buy them, I have too much Aeon's End. And so I didn't go into Astronauts because I'm already saturated with Aeon's End. I'm very, very happy with this. And so one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to buy Astronauts and it's going to replace Aeon's End for me. And then what I'm going to do with all that other stuff is just going to sit on the shelf and collect dust. Or I'm not going to like it as much, and then I'm going to feel foolish for buying it. Or maybe, again, because I know I'm going to hear this in the comment section down below. Otherwise, maybe you'll play them both equally and have time for them both equally, because that totally happens. If you've got one, it's too many. If you also have one, it's never nearly enough because you can't ever fill your, feed with that. Now, what else is like that? Arydia from Far Off Games. The paths we dare tread, giving you a Diablo as well as the RPG style of things that we were just talking about, only with a more unique, original setting. You want to play as a cooperative adventure board game as you grow in power, collect new items, weapons, and skills, visit the locations, and overcome the challenges. 900 cards, 300 map cards, multi-layer world maps, player boards, and 40 plus hours of handcrafted handcrafted gameplay. Jobs, mini games, puzzles, riddles, overarching story, as well as obviously combat. And yeah, 100 hours, right? Genuine exploration and surprises along the way. I'm always amazed by the people that are like, wow, in either of these games, the writing is amazing. Holy cow, the writing in other game that was super big with miniatures from a super big company was, I've never been overly impressed by, if I want super good writing, I'm gonna go read a book. That being said, I don't care ultimately either. Make it passable, make it coherent, make it free of errors, and that's what matters more. And so that is not an element I would make the argument to buy a game for, the story of a game like this, because ultimately it's not, the vast majority of us, going to be the story that hooks us, the story that keeps you going back, the story that just makes you feel like it's the best game of the year. It's the mechanics, it's the gameplay, it's the elements interacting in those ways, of all of those features and interwoven components that are going to do that. The narrative being slightly better or slightly worse is, you know, as other reviewers sometimes do, it's a quarter of a point one way either way, right? Because quarters of a point definitely, I'm being facetious again, I hate that rating scale. But my point being that it might slightly skew you, but it's not going to be the make it or break it, and it should not be the reason you do or do not back or buy the game. But again, life freaking style. And a lot of us, niche, solo, whatever, you know, no families. That's the type of game. This is the type of game that is probably a great fit for you. But if that isn't you, me, you have to be, and this is where I'm going to say, I'm not going to say don't get it. You got to be selective. You got to be selective. You got to be selective. Because it's not about the money oftentimes then either, right? You have the money to buy probably both these games. All of those other aspects that I mentioned at the beginning, do you have those? And those are much harder to come by. So take that for what you will. Finspan, we have to talk about it because it's coming out soon or right after or before this video airs. I mean, right? Stonemaier. We have, you know, Goldilocks and the three spans, if you will, right? Finspan, Wingspan, and Wormspan. The most surprising thing was actually that Wormspan was as high as rated overall on end of year 2024 lists as it was, right? But the pedigree of this, the impact on the hobby as a whole, the sheer people it has brought in, the numbers it has sold cannot be diminished whatsoever. You may not like it, but it's for someone. It's for people. It's been out barely at all at this point and already has 1,200 ratings on Board Game Geek, which is insane given the amount of time it's actually been released and available to any major extent whatsoever, which already puts it the 2000th best game rankings on Board Game Geek at the time of me filming this. Is it going to be too light? Now, Wormspan and Finspan both offer different dynamics in terms of the actual mechanistic approach. The problem with this game, and the reason you shouldn't get it, is because it strikes me as I can't tell whether or not I'm going to like this game, because I have seen all over the board, all across the realm of the hobby scene, of people saying, well, I didn't like this one, but I do like this one. Or, I didn't like this one, I thought I was going to like this one, and I didn't. And so I look at this right now, and I say, if you are not completely and utterly in the back pocket of loving this game from a Stonemaier standpoint, there's absolutely zero reason to get it. Because if you can't tell that you love it with something like this, right? Again, I'm not going to make the argument that this is a super expensive game. It's going to cost you $50. That is a little more expensive for a lighter filler game, because again, I hear you guys all the time and you say, I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars, triple digits, whatever, for heavy, lengthy games. Chris, I can't pay $50 for a game that's going to play for 45 minutes. That just doesn't, and you know what? I have no qualms about that. But what I'm saying at the same time is that, is this going to be something you're going to love for that much money? Is it going to replace my copy of Wingspan? Is it going to be a more accessible version of those? Is it going to have that slight twist in the dynamics, which we'll talk about in a second with another line or series of games, where you may really like one of them and the overarching conceptualization of them is very similar, but you don't like another one nearly as much? And I think Finspan, in that sense, is a complete and utter motherfreaking crapshoot for you. And you need to go play someone else's copy. Or, again, like with any of these games, if you do this for any of these games, I will never begrudge you whatsoever because I do it. Trade. Trade for it. At the time of me filming this, there are 5 people on Board Game Geek already with it up for trade, because that's the other thing we see with these super uber popular hyped games that people buy right freaking away and then they trade them after playing them once because they go, whoops, all those things I just said, I was right. Okay, game number 2. And this is surprising to me as well, because it's already ranked higher than a game I loved, and I know why people didn't love Cascadero and the Knizia tile laying scheme of things, but the Mighty Boards Knizia tile laying game of Rebirth, which I also covered, is already, 1300th compared to Cascadero, which is sitting in the 2100s. So Finspan's already better than Cascadero, folks. It's a very, very straightforward tile layer in the lines of the others that we have seen. Your Babylonias, your Blue Lagoons, your Tigris and Euphrates, your Yellow and Yangtzes, your Samurai-esque, anything that falls in the Cascadero-esque vibe of things. And I think the 2 boards is nice, but the second board, the Irish board, I believe, is what it's representing on the other side. It gave it more variability. I could see the one board really being a little bit stagnant, and that was my big concern. It is a lot more straightforward, a lot more what you see is what you get, dynamically speaking, than almost all of those other ones that I mentioned, which for some of you, you aren't going to like that whatsoever. And that's my cautionary tale. On the flip side of things, this is a great one to get in on. This is a great one to say, this is my intro to these style of games to see if I like it. Now, that being said, is it one actually to get in on? No. I mean, go buy Babylonia or Blue Lagoon for half the price of this in the secondary market, which are going to be more available because this is brand spanking new and people are going to want to get 99% of their 100% dollar, if you will, right now because they have some guilt about not wanting to lose money on it. And so those are better ones necessarily to test your teeth on, if you will, right? Nom, 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 that sort of thing. But is it going to be more accessible? Yeah. Is it a $55, $60 game for me, though, at the same time? I mean, that's where you really need to take a look at this and see. There's a lot of, this tile can only be placed in this area because the icon is only in these areas on the board. And you start to see sort of where the bigger ones are and where the better ones are. And there is some area majority with the castles and the cathedrals and the towers, depending on which map you're playing. And, again, it plays incredibly fast. I'd make the argument it's a lot less strategic. It's a lot more, you see the optimal move, take the optimal move sort of situation rather than dicing through which one you want to take on a turn-by-turn game state board situation, which, again, may or may not behoove what you're looking for. But it's an interesting test, and this is a great series from Knizia in the first place. So I have a type, and I should probably own this one too because I own all the rest. Anyway, speaking of things I thankfully don't have too much of at this point, Star Wars Unlimited. Star Wars Unlimited, FFG, is giving us the next set of jumping to light speed. Whereas the first couple sets really focused on the ground battle, really focused on the dynamics of the character interactions, the equipments, the keywords, adding them on every single time. This is aforementioned title, giving us more dynamic into the galaxy-spanning, space-fighting, starship pilot, and epic space battle incorporation. And the question just is, to what extent and to how much, right? Because they're also diving in deeper to this FOMO-driven model of separating things out into different packs even further, different rarities, different acquisitions, and the showcase cards, and all of those have not gone anywhere. And just like when we last talked about this, I will make the argument that you unless are going to buy and try and be complete set or meta before everyone else, and you have a couple grand to spend, I mean, go ahead and let me know and shoot me some cards my way. But other than that, you're better off piecemealing it, right? With any of these, this, Pokemon TCG. If you're playing in any sort of competitive or even just intra-family competitiveness, and you want to build a couple decks to play with, you just wait until all those people spending $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 buying their booster boxes, chasing all of the, you know, rarities that I just mentioned, have sets of commons and uncommons for 20, 30, 50 bucks, and you get 1 or 2 sets of those, and that'll be enough to bling out your deck with a few random rares here and there to complete it in the first place. So there's really not a whole reason for you as the casual, I just want to play this in a non, you know, tournament gameplay setting manner, to do that unless you are a completionist set collector in the first place. Red Moho, Grand Gamers Guild. Inferno. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. Dante, right? This was the other Dante's Inferno game that went up head-to-head simultaneously against CGS, Creative Games Studios, you know, their Dante's Inferno sequel-esque follow-up to Chronicles of Drunagor, right? In the lines of the 3D terrain and the adynamic stuff and all this stuff. And this one got overlooked, and it's now available at retail this month. This is a crunchy, strategic Euro, right? This is not your thematic, chaotic, crawl or upgrade them, take that style of game that the thematic incorporation may suggest otherwise. There are unorthodox mechanism combinations with the rule book that is a little harder to parse, with randomized tracks and changing location combos that are going to be potentially a little bit analysis paralysis inducing. And so this is potentially a lot heavier than it looks on surface value. And when I look at this, and I also see that the recommended player count, the best, as it says, 3 to 4, right, for a potentially 2+ hour game or around there at a 3.5 weighting on Board Game Geek, that's not insignificant. Now, 3.5, you know, some of you are going to say, Chris, I, you know, do 3.5 while I'm eating breakfast and multitasking. Others of us go 3.5. That's bordering on, you know, the edge of what I want to deal with on a regular basis. Again, not because we can't, but just because that's not always where the enjoyment factor is. And so this is a lot heavier than I was expecting, but it's, you know, for people that love it, they're really loving it. Again, 1,200 ratings and 1,800 overall. Is it going to sucker you in with the thematic incorporation and the diving through as a Euro worker placement, the levels of hell in their respective circles as you choose between playing an action at a city location and exposing a sinner who's executed and advancing on the hell registry? Does that sound like fun mechanically to you? Probably more so than any of the ones as well right now, as well as probably any of the ones in the rest of this video. If you can't tell based off of some of the mechanistic descriptions, when you go over to Board Game Geek, watch the videos and read the commentary section, pump the brakes, find somebody who has a copy, and try it out first. Going back to one, again, that I covered on crowdfunding from Weird Games, I think this is an absolutely fantastic, smashing overall success of a cooperative game in the form of Vagrantsong. And Vagrantsong came back to crowdfunding and is now showing up at retail this month with the 2 expansions that gave it more breadth, depth, and life of Encore and Off the Rails. I know the life thing is a little bit of a pun there because you're vagrant on a moving hell train, essentially, trying to pacify, not kill. That's the main aspect difference here. Ghosts that are haunting in some way, shape, or form. And the creativity that has gone into this is very divisive. People either love it or they kind of hate it in terms of what you're doing differently, because you're not smash, bash, crash, kill that we're used to in a crawl type scenario. You are navigating, you are adynamically dealing with ghosts that are going to change their moods and the dynamics of the action programming that's available to them in the first place. And the expansions of Off the Rails are just allowing you to go back to scenarios you played before and mix match with new actions, new events, and new, well, challenges to deal with along the way. And then Encore is giving you just more. It's giving you another chapter, more scenarios, and more individual scenarios, as well as short trip mode to give you more chunks of chapter-sized morsels in smaller amounts to digest easier. So it's more of a good thing. But I would make the argument that neither of these, from a core, what Vagrantsong is bringing in the dynamic of difference in crawler in general to its contemporaries and predecessors and compatriots, it's not going to make you love it anymore. If you were not a fan of this, it's not going to change your thoughts whatsoever. Zero, right? The actions are the same. The approach is the same. The window dressing is different. And the amount is slightly more. But if you were not a fan originally, this will not cause you to be a convert in any way, shape, or form. This is not going to be an expansion that changes your mind on things in the first place, like some others have done for me in the last couple months. Something like a Veil of Eternity expansion, for example, that made a mediocre game for me a lot better. This is not going to do that. It's just going to give the whipped cream and the cherry on the top for the lovers in the first place. Now we have Hutan, Life in the Rainforest, Sidekick Games, 1 to 4 players, 2.0 rating. We're going a completely opposite direction now. Under 45 minutes as you build your rainforest with trees and iconic animals. Why are we looking at this? Why are we talking about this? Because, folks, it's going to be on the hotness, probably at the time of you looking at this or hearing about it, or somebody's going to be hyping it up. There was a couple, how to play videos, giving it a little bit of a look-see touch on, wow, that looks interesting. I should get that because it's newest and hottest and hyped. And that's okay. But also when I see literally like 6 how to play videos come out within a matter of days within each other, wow, right? That is striking hype while the hype train is hot. You're playing over 9 rounds. You're playing flower cards from the shared market pool to place flowers on your rainforest. If you place a flower on top of a matching one, you grow a tree. You complete these areas of the trees and it's replaced by an animal. At the end of the game, whoever grew the best rainforest and attracted the most animals will score the most points. It gives me vague vibes of the other card-driven gameplay aspect of rainforest building in the form of Canopy and Canopy Evergreen from the last 2 or 3 years. So dynamically different enough, mechanically different enough, and again, not really a whole lot of actual anything but how to play at the time of me filming this. So if you want to know how to play it, you can watch 5 different videos right now, but not really a whole lot else known unless watching somebody else play it gives you the best sense of whether or not it's right for you. See disclaimer at the beginning of the video. It's beautiful. It's freaking awesome to look at. It's got the thematic incorporation of 2024 carrying it over to make you feel nostalgic for anything earth or animal related. But guess what? It'll still be there 6 months from now. Another one here that I really have to talk about that I'm really actually excited about. I've actually had it on my wish list now for quite some time, ever since it went to crowdfunding, ever since it was actually part of the Cardboard Edison Awards, and that is Diatoms, a microscopic mosaic Cascadia-like puzzle that now 20th Century Games has picked up and is distributing. Tile placement, pattern matching, and obscure Victorian art form. There were 2 games in the recent past that I looked at this and I said, this is what I want out of it. That description, it matches everything I love, but both of them have sort of failed and underachieved. And those 2 games were Amygdala from Game Brewer and Vivid Memories from Floodgate Games. Games that I looked at and I said, whoa, this is exactly what I want. And then just kind of didn't work in that way. And so now with Diatoms doing something similar, a Cascadia Calico vibe situation with the tile placement and the creating of patterns and colors and shapes, it just looks like everything that I always wanted out of it. But again, it's also going to be, because it's pattern matching and that complex, like Calico, it's going to be mathy, it's going to be AP inducing, and sometimes that is off-putting rather than helping, especially if it's like a factory runner situation where the gameplay is listed as 30 to 45 minutes, but because of those elements, it ends up taking you 70 minutes. And is that a deal breaker for you as a whole? It also, the one thing I'll say is nice is that if 25th Century Games is picking it up right now, it's actually less than the cost of crowdfunding in addition. And that actually makes me slightly excited. which is why, again, don't do what I'm doing, because you don't need another one of these. You don't need one that fills that niche. You already have 3 of those, like I already mentioned, by those names. And if you don't like those in the first place, I'll argue that this one, again, is not going to change your mind. So a couple of the retail games that you definitely shouldn't buy in the lines of Zenith, a solar system engine build tech tree tug of war, gaining influence over 3 victory conditions of 5 different planets. Reminds me of one of my favorite abstracts, Zerts, right? Get 3 discs on the same planet, get 4 discs on different planets, or get 5 influence on any planets total. Because Zerts is sort of like a tic-tac-toe vibe, and you have to capture by jumping either 3 of one color, 4 of another color, or 5 of another color, but you can also get like a certain number of each of them, 2 of each of them, or something like that. Anyway, but that's the vibe of things. I mean, it's beautiful to look at from Playpunk, and it's not widely available. It's not widely even talked about yet at this point. Very, very few reviews, none basically at the time of me filming this, even in North America. So do you risk it being one of the first ones to get this game? High risk, high reward, as you get to be the coolest kid on the block? Or again, waiting 6 months and seeing, does this game actually stand up for a 25 to 35 minute engine build style of things a little bit later? Consequently, engine building, a little bit of worker placement, meeple moving, I talked about it on crowdfunding, Tabriz from Crafty Games, right? Get a little bit of income market and dice rolling all in one. Well, complete your commissions as you're gathering the resources, crossing through the desert sands in the different market bazaar shops that you are going to be going back and forth from, and using the range that you have available to you in order to efficiently get them as you're going, because things will be out of stock, skills will be acquired to gain better commissions, and, well, advanced workshop mode to give a unique ability for your character at the start of the game. And pedigree from the designer of Cascadia. Is that tempting? Tricky aspect, though, is it going to overstay its welcome? That's what the biggest criticism is, at least the time of me filming this, saying, okay, this is a nice game, but this is a nice game also that if it lasts about an hour, it's maybe 10 or 15 minutes too long. Is that a big deal to you? Definitely at the higher player counts potentially, but the biggest make it or break it is with said bazaar and how you restock these different elements in the different shops in the first place is that, again, it doesn't scale differently in that regard. So you might be at the mercy of your opponents who just happen to be the right race, right time, and you're too far away to mitigate because, you know, you're not anywhere close to the turn order that you need to be in the first place. So again, is it one of those games that you're willing to go take a risk on to see if it's right for you? And then finally, it's coming over to North America right now as we speak, the People from Below expansion for Faraway. It adds 2 new factions, they say, the 3-eyed ones in the guides. And the best part about this game, the best part, he said, completely and utterly sarcastically, is that now you can play this game with up to 7 people. What? No! And I really hope that that just means that there's just more cards, not that they actually included extra stuff for the sake of making an expansion slightly pricier so that you can play up to 7. Because, you know, this game is probably best at 3. I don't really want to play it with more than 4. And I would ultimately probably play it the most at 2. So I'm really happy that Ketchup Games is bringing it over to North America and you can get this and add a little bit more to Faraway, which, again, I feel like could definitely use that. But again, the conundrum, do you buy an expansion to fix a problem or to give more legs to the base game in the first place? Or would you better off just not getting it if you're concerned about that as well prior to buying it? So that is always the dilemma. And that is retail for freaking March. Let me know. Comments, questions, or concerns. What else is on your radar and why you shouldn't probably buy it in the first place? I've got a couple things I've been sitting on my cart. I'm looking at you, bomb busters. Still have not been able to pull the freaking trigger. I'm so close though. I'm probably a little bit too close as well, temptation wise, about the Root and Oath late backing for those expansions. Ooh, just when I think I'm out, they pull me right back in. I got nothing else. Peace out. Have a great freaking day. Subscribe if you made it this far. Let me know what you think.